Dr. Lyra Henderson pressed her forehead against the observatory's curved window, watching the crystalline planet Prisma rotate slowly beneath her research vessel, the stellar horizon. The world glowed with an inner light that pulsed in patterns she'd spent months trying to decipher. Dr. Henderson, the ship's AI chimed, I'm detecting unusual frequency variations in the signal pattern. They appear to be responding to our presence. Lyra straightened, her dark curls floating in the low gravity. Show me Perseus. A holographic display materialized, showing wavelengths that danced like sound visualizations. She'd never seen anything like it in her 15 years of xenobiology research. The crystalline formations aren't just geological structures, she muttered, making notes on her tablet. They're communicating. Shall I alert Earth Command? Perseus asked. Not yet, let's be certain before we cause an interstellar incident. Lyra gathered her research equipment into a cargo pod. After 6 months of observation, she was ready for a closer look. The surface of Prisma sparkled like billions of diamonds caught in eternal sunset. Lyra's landing pod touched down in a valley surrounded by towering crystal spires that hummed with that same mysterious frequency. She checked her suit's integrity one final time before stepping out. The moment her boots touched the crystalline ground, the humming changed. It became more focused, almost like a greeting. Lyra activated her scanning equipment, heart racing as the readings confirmed what she'd suspected: the crystals were alive. Fascinating, she breathed, reaching out to touch the nearest formation. The surface was warm, vibrating with energy that seemed to flow into her suit's sensors. You should not be here. Lyra spun around, nearly losing her footing on the smooth surface. A figure stood atop a nearby crystal formation, tall, humanoid, but clearly not human. Their body appeared to be composed of semi-transparent crystal, with internal lights that pulsed in rhythm with the planet's song. Long, graceful limbs ended in pointed fingers, and their face was a masterpiece of geometric patterns that somehow conveyed expression. I am Nyxis, guardian of the song, the being said, their voice resonating directly in Lyra's mind. Your presence disrupts the harmony. Lyra raised her hands slowly, showing she was unarmed. I'm Dr. Lyra Henderson, a scientist from Earth. I mean no harm, I'm here to study and understand. Nyxis tilted their head, crystal facets catching the light. Understanding requires more than observation, Earth being, it requires resonance. Before Lyra could respond, the crystal beneath her feet pulsed with intense light. She felt a sensation like falling into music, her consciousness expanding to touch something vast and beautiful. The planet's song filled her mind, and for a moment she understood what it meant to be part of a crystalline chorus that spanned an entire world. When the sensation faded, she found herself on her knees, tears streaming down her face inside her helmet. Nyxis had descended to stand before her, offering a crystalline hand. Now you begin to hear, they said, helping her up. Few organic beings have ever comprehended the song. Your mind resonates differently, uniquely. Lyra steadied herself, still overwhelmed by the experience. That was incredible. Your entire civilization communicates through these harmonics. We are the harmonics, Nyxis explained. What you call crystals are our bodies, our homes, our history. The song is life itself. They gestured to the spires around them. These are not structures, but my people in their resting state. As if in response to Nyxis's words, the crystals around them shifted, faces and forms emerging from the geometric patterns. The entire valley was alive with beings similar to Nyxis, each one a unique arrangement of light and crystal. I never imagined, Lyra whispered, all our scans are theories. We thought this was just an unusual geological formation. We were so wrong. Nyxis's expression shifted, the patterns of their face rearranging into what Lyra interpreted as curiosity. Perhaps that is why you were permitted to hear. You seek truth, not conquest. Your song, though different, harmonizes with ours. A warning chime sounded in Lyra's helmet. Her oxygen supply was running low. I need to return to my ship, she said reluctantly, but I have so many questions. Return tomorrow, Nyxis said. I will teach you to hear more clearly. There is much your people should understand about harmony before our worlds touch further. As Lyra made her way back to her landing pod, she felt the song following her, softer now but unmistakable. She had come seeking scientific discovery but found something far more profound, a new way of understanding life itself. In orbit preparing her initial report, Lyra kept pausing to look down at Prisma. The planet's glow seemed different now that she knew each pulse was a heartbeat, each pattern a conversation. She thought of Nyxus, of the way they had shared the song with her, and realized her research had just become something far more personal than she'd ever anticipated. Perseus, she said finally, begin recording. First contact report, Dr. Lyra Henderson, regarding the sentient crystalline beings of Prisma. Today marks not just a scientific breakthrough, but the beginning of what may be humanity's most harmonious first contact. She paused, watching a new pattern of light dance across Prisma's surface. Somewhere down there, Nyxus was probably explaining to their people about the curious organic being who had learned to listen to their song. Tomorrow, she would return, and a new chapter in both their species' histories would begin. The universe, Lyra realized, had many ways of singing. She just needed to learn the right way to listen. 2 weeks after first contact, Lyra sat cross-legged on a crystal platform hovering meters above Prisma's surface, her helmet beside her. The Prismarians had created a breathable atmosphere bubble for her, allowing her to experience their world more directly. Nyxus stood nearby, their crystalline form refracting the light of 3 setting suns. The harmonics are shifting, Nyxus said, their mental voice tinged with concern. Listen. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing on the subtle vibrations that now constantly hummed through her consciousness. After daily lessons with Nyxus, she'd learned to interpret the basic patterns of the song. What she heard now made her stomach clench. It's discordant, she said, like something's interfering with the natural rhythm. Yes, Nyxus's internal lights pulsed rapidly. A stellar anomaly approaches. We call it the Void Song, a massive storm of dark energy that disrupts our harmonics. It returns every 1,000 cycles. Lyra pulled out her tablet, fingers flying over the surface. Let me check something. She connected to Perseus's long-range scanners and her fears were confirmed. We're detecting it too. A cosmic storm massive enough to affect spacetime itself. According to these readings, it could tear this entire system apart. Nyxus nodded solemnly. In past cycles, we survived by entering the deep song, a state of suspended animation within our core crystals. But each time, we lose more of our people to the discord. How long until it hits? 3 solar rotations. Lyra stood, mind racing. There has to be another way. Your people's song, it's not just communication, it affects the physical structure of this world. I've seen you reshape matter through harmonic resonance. The Void Song is too powerful to counter directly, Nyxus said, but Lyra noticed their lights brightening with interest. What if we didn't counter it? Lyra began packing, a habit that always helped her think. What if we redirected it, used your harmonics to create a sort of acoustic lens? Nyxus's form shifted, geometric patterns rearranging in what Lyra had learned was excitement. Like the crystal spires that focus our songs, but we would need a network, they said simultaneously. Perseus, Lyra called into her communicator, I need you to map the largest crystal formations on Prisma. Look for any natural resonance patterns. The AI projected a holographic map above her tablet. Nyxus moved closer, their shoulder brushing Lyra's. She tried to ignore the pleasant tingling sensation that always accompanied physical contact with the crystalline being. These 7 major formations, Nyxus pointed, their finger leaving trails of light in the hologram, they are our eldest, the strongest singers. Lyra nodded. If we could link them, create a planetary harmonics web. She trailed off as calculations raced through her mind. But we'd need something to amplify the signal. The stellar horizon, Nyxus said, your ship's energy matrix, it sings in ways similar to our crystals. I've heard its echo in orbit. It could work as a focal point, Lyra agreed, but positioning it would be incredibly dangerous, one miscalculation. I will go with you, Nyxus said firmly. Our songs must work in harmony for this to succeed. Lyra looked up at them, struck by the determination in their crystalline features. You've never left Prisma's surface. There is no song without risk, Nyxus said, quoting a Prismarian philosophy they'd taught her. And I trust your melody, Lyra Henderson. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparations. Lyra worked with Perseus to modify the ship's power systems, while Nyxus coordinated with their people to strengthen the crystal network. Other Prismarians, including their Council of Resonance, were skeptical of the plan but respected Nyxus's judgment. On the final day, as they made their way to Lyra's landing pod, she noticed Nyxus's lights pulsing in an unfamiliar pattern. Are you nervous? She asked. My harmonics are uncertain, they admitted. I have never imagined being so far from the song. Without thinking, Lyra reached out and took their hand. Crystal met flesh, and that now familiar tingle of energy passed between them. "You won't be far from it," she said softly. "I've learned enough of your songs to know they're part of you wherever you go." Nyxus's face shifted into what Lyra had come to recognize as a smile. "You understand more than any outsider ever has." The journey to the stellar horizon was tense. Nyxus spent much of it pressed against the pod's window, watching their world shrink beneath them. Their lights flickered between anxiety and wonder. Once aboard, Lyra led them to the bridge. "Perseus, begin harmony integration protocols." "Welcome, Guardian Nyxus," the AI said. "Your crystalline structure has been registered for environmental controls." Nyxus moved to the center of the bridge where they would interface with the ship's systems. "The storm approaches. I can feel its discord even here." Lyra checked her readings. The cosmic storm was visible now, a roiling mass of dark energy that seemed to devour light itself. "Beginning power synchronization. Perseus, link us to the surface network." As the ship's energy merged with the planetary song, Lyra felt it resonating through her bones. Nyxus began to glow brighter, their form pulsing in time with the synchronized harmonics. "The focuses are aligned," they announced, "but the storm." Warnings blared as the first wave hit. The ship shuddered, its shields straining. On the surface below, the crystal network blazed with light, 7 massive formations shooting beams of energy into space. "Harmony at 60%, Perseus reported. Structural integrity failing." Lyra Nyxus's voice was strained. Help me find the rhythm." Understanding instantly, Lyra moved to their side. She placed her hands on their crystalline shoulders, closing her eyes and remembering every lesson, every moment they'd shared in the song. Together, they began to sing. It wasn't a physical sound, but a merging of energies, human determination and crystalline harmony, technology and ancient songs, fear and hope and something else, something neither of them had dared name yet. The ship's lights flared. Below, the crystal network pulsed in perfect synchronization. The dark energy of the storm bent around Prisma like water around a stone, its destructive force redirected safely into space. When it was over, Lyra found herself on her knees, Nyxus's arms around her. Their lights had dimmed to a soft glow, but their grip was strong. "We did it," she whispered. "Our songs," Nyxus said, their voice filled with wonder. "They created a new harmony." Looking down at Prisma, now safe and glowing peacefully below them, Lyra understood that more than the planet had been changed by their collaboration. In finding a way to save Nyxus's world, they had discovered something neither of them had expected, a duet that would continue long after the storm's passing. "What happens now?" she asked. Nyxus's lights pulsed in a pattern she'd never seen before but somehow understood perfectly. "Now," they said, "we learn to sing together." 1 month after the Void Song incident, Lyra found herself deep within the crystalline archives of Prisma, surrounded by towering spires that contained millennia of recorded history. Each crystal held memories in the form of frozen songs, waiting to be awakened by the right harmonic touch. "This section predates our current civilization," Nyxus explained, their light casting shifting patterns across the transparent walls. "Few of us can still interpret these ancient frequencies." Lyra ran her fingers along a nearby crystal, feeling the faint vibrations within. After their success with the storm, the Council of Resonance had granted her unprecedented access to Prismarian knowledge. She'd spent weeks helping them integrate some of her technology with their crystalline systems, but today was different. "Perseus detected something strange in the deep scans," she said, pulling up the data on her modified tablet. "Energy signatures that don't match any known Prismarian patterns. They seem to originate from this era." Nyxus moved closer, their crystalline form shifting with curiosity. "Show me." The holographic display flickered between them, showing wavelengths that pulsed with an alien rhythm. Nyxus's lights dimmed slightly, their equivalent of a frown. "This song, it's wrong, discordant, like echoes of a civilization we never knew existed." Before Lyra could respond, one of the archive crystals began to resonate, responding to the frequencies from her tablet. The air filled with shimmering particles as an ancient memory awakened. Holographic images formed around them, strange ships descending from the stars, their design unlike anything in Earth or Prismarian records. The vessels seemed to be made of living metal that flowed like liquid crystal. "Impossible," Nyxus whispered. These must be from the time of shattering, when our people were still forming from raw crystal consciousness. Lyra watched, fascinated, as the scene played out. The alien ships landed and beings emerged, neither human nor Prismarian, but something in between. They moved with fluid grace, their bodies shifting between solid and crystalline states. They were like you, she said softly, but different, more adaptable. The first song, Nyxus said, their voice filled with awe. We thought it was just a legend. The story says that before we became fully crystalline, our ancestors could shift between forms. They chose to merge with the planet's crystal matrix to achieve immortality, but some opposed this transformation. The hologram showed conflict, battles fought with harmonics that could shatter mountains. One faction retreated to the stars, while the others merged with the planet's crystal core, becoming the first true Prismarians. Your people didn't evolve here naturally, Lyra realized. You were transformed, but why? What were you running from? The archive crystal pulsed again, but this time the harmonics were jarring, almost painful. Images flickered rapidly, a dark force pursuing the ancient ships, something that devoured light and song alike. The same energy signature as the Void song, but concentrated, controlled. Not running from, Nyxus corrected, their lights pulsing rapidly. Running ahead of, they were warriors, guardians against the dark. By becoming one with Prisma, they created a barrier, a harmony strong enough to hold back the void. Lyra's mind raced with implications. The storm wasn't a natural phenomenon, it was a weapon, or what's left of one. Your ancestors have been holding it back for millennia. And now you understand why we cannot leave, why our song must continue. Nyxus turned to her, their faceted face catching the light. But you, Lyra, you changed something when we sang together. The harmony we created was different from anything in our records. Because I'm humans. Because you bridge both worlds. Like our ancestors, you can touch the song without being consumed by it. You hear the music but remain yourself. Lyra thought about the tingles she felt whenever they touched, the way she could now sense the planet's rhythms even from orbit. I'm changing though, aren't I? The more time I spend here, the more I feel the harmonics. Nyxus reached out, their crystalline fingers intertwining with hers. The familiar energy flowed between them, stronger than ever. You are not becoming Prismarian, they said gently. You are becoming something new, something that exists between our songs. A distant chime echoed through the archives, a summons from the council. But neither of them moved to answer it immediately, both lost in the resonance between them. There's more in these records, Lyra said finally. If we can understand how your ancestors transformed, how they created the barrier. We might find a way to strengthen it permanently, Nyxus finished. But it would mean delving deeper into frequencies that haven't been touched in ages. It could be dangerous. Lyra squeezed their hand. Everything worth singing about is a little dangerous. Nyxus's light sparkled, their version of laughter. You even speak like us now. As they made their way to the council chamber, Lyra felt the weight of their discovery. The Prismarians weren't just her research subjects or even her friends anymore. They were guardians of an ancient legacy, holding back a darkness she was only beginning to understand. And Nyxus was becoming something she couldn't quite define. Partner, teacher, friend, and maybe something more, their songs were becoming increasingly intertwined. The archive crystals hummed behind them, their ancient frequencies mixing with the modern songs of Prisma. Somewhere in that harmony, Lyra knew, lay answers about both their people's futures. She just hoped they could decode them before the next wave of darkness reached their shores. Because now she understood, the Void song would return, stronger each time, until either it broke through or they found a way to change the very nature of their civilization's songs. Ready? Nyxus asked as they approached the council chamber. Lyra nodded, feeling the crystalline recorder she'd borrowed from the archive's pulse against her hip. Time to teach her council some new harmonies. Above them, the three sons of Prisma cast ever-shifting shadows through the crystal spires, their light creating melodies only some could hear. And in those melodies, two very different beings began composing a future neither of their species had imagined possible. The warning came as a discordant note in Prisma's song. Lyra was in her adapted living quarters, studying ancient harmonics with Nyxus, when Perseus's voice cut through their concentration. Dr. Henderson, 3 Earth vessels have entered the system. Their signatures match Quantum Dynamics Corporation. Lyra's blood ran cold. What? They're not due for negotiations for another month. Their arrival appears deliberately premature, Perseus said. They're broadcasting corporate authorization codes. Nyxus's crystalline form dimmed with concern. Your rival researchers. Worse, Lyra said, gathering her equipment. QDC is a private military contractor disguised as a research company. They specialize in exploiting new discoveries before proper diplomatic channels are established. The council chamber was already humming with agitated frequencies when they arrived. The eldest Prismarian, Sentinel Voss, turned their towering crystalline form toward them. These vessels carry weapons, Voss announced, their mental voice resonating with disapproval. They disrupt the harmony. Let me contact them, Lyra insisted. They have to respect the preliminary agreements. A new voice cut through the chamber. Dr. Henderson, still playing alien ambassador, I see. Director Roland Pierce materialized as a hologram in the center of the room, his sharp features twisted in a cold smile. Lyra had rejected his job offers 3 times before accepting her current position. Pierce, this is a sovereign world protected under international space treaty laws. Laws that only apply to recognized sentient species, Pierce countered. Our scans show crystalline formations with unusual energy patterns, natural resources nothing more perfect for harvesting. Nyxus stepped forward, their form blazing with controlled anger. We are not resources to be harvested. Pierce's eyebrows rose slightly. Fascinating, basic mimicry and energy manipulation, but hardly proof of true consciousness. You know that's not true, Lyra snapped. I've sent detailed reports. Reports that describe a primitive crystalline network that somehow repelled a cosmic storm. Do you know what that technology is worth? What we could do with that power? The chamber's harmonics shifted as more Prismarians arrived, their songs joining in a rising chorus of protest. Pierce's hologram flickered as energy patterns intensified. You have 1 hour to evacuate your research station, Dr. Henderson, Pierce said. After that, we begin extraction procedures. Don't worry, we'll preserve some specimens for study. The hologram vanished. Lyra turned to the council, her mind racing. We need to reconnect with the ancient defense systems, now. The old harmonics are unstable, Voss warned. They could shatter our entire matrix. Better shattered than enslaved, Nyxus said. Their lights pulsed in a pattern Lyra recognized as determination. I will lead the alignment. For the next hour, they worked frantically. Lyra interfaced her technology with the crystal network while Nyxus and the council accessed increasingly dangerous frequencies. The ancient records had shown them the theory, now they had to make it work. Pierce's ships arrived exactly on schedule, their weapons charging. Final warning, Doctor, clear the area. Lyra stood in the central crystal spire, her hands pressed against the warm, humming surface. Nyxus stood behind her, their energy merging with hers in the way that had become so natural. Ready, she asked. Our song will not end here, Nyxus replied. The first blast from Pierce's ship struck a crystalline shield that hadn't existed in millennia. The entire planet rang like a bell, ancient harmonics awakening. Every crystal spire on Prisma began to glow. Impossible, Pierce's voice crackled through the comm. Those energy readings. Lyra felt the power building, felt Nyxus's strength flowing through her. This is your final warning, Pierce. The Prismarians aren't defenseless crystals. They're the guardians of something far more dangerous than you know. Corporate property rights supersede. The song reached its crescendo. Every crystal on Prisma pulsed in unison, releasing a wave of harmonic energy that made the storm they'd faced seem gentle. Pierce's ship stuttered in space as their systems were overwhelmed by frequencies that could reshape matter. What are you doing? Pierce demanded as his ships began to drift. Showing you what true consciousness looks like, Lyra replied. The Prismarians aren't just sentient, they're the descendants of beings who learned to fight the void between stars. Want to see what that power looks like up close? The ship's hulls began to crystallize, transformed by the same harmonics that had changed the Prismarians' ancestors. Not enough to harm the crews, but more than enough to make Pierce understand exactly what he was facing. Stand down, Lyra said quietly, or the next song turns your fleet into modern art. The weapons powered down. Pierce's voice when it came was considerably less confident. This isn't over, Henderson, the corporate board. We'll receive full documentation of everything that happened here, she finished, including your attempt to violate multiple international laws. I wonder how shareholders will react to that. After Pierce's ships retreated, Lyra sagged against the crystal wall, exhausted. Nyxus caught her, their cool surface soothing against her skin. "You risked much," they said, "standing with us against your own kind." Lyra looked up at them, at the intricate patterns of light that had become as familiar as her own heartbeat. "They're not my kind anymore. My song belongs here now." Around them, Prisma hummed with renewed power, ancient harmonics mixing with new frequencies to create something stronger than either civilization had known before. And in that song, Lyra finally heard the truth she'd been dancing around for months. She was no longer just a visitor or an ambassador. She had become part of Prisma's symphony, and her duet with Nyxus was only beginning. 3 months after the confrontation with Pierce, Prisma's crystal spires glowed with newfound brilliance. The integration of ancient harmonics had transformed the planet's defense network, but it had also awakened something deeper, memories and abilities long forgotten by the Prismarians. Lyra stood before the Council of Resonance, presenting her latest findings. The transformation isn't just defensive. Your ancestors left behind the key to controlled evolution, the ability to shift between crystalline and organic forms. Sentinel Voss leaned forward, their massive form casting prismatic shadows. "You suggest we should abandon our current state?" "No," Lyra said, glancing at Nyxus, who stood supportively at her side. "I'm suggesting you reclaim your full heritage, the ability to adapt to change, to grow beyond what you are now, just as I have." She held up her hand, concentrating. Slowly, her skin shimmered, taking on a crystalline quality before returning to normal. The council chamber filled with surprised harmonics. "The human speaks truth," Nyxus said, their voice carrying the weight of authority they'd earned during the crisis. "Our songs grow stronger when we embrace change. We need not fear becoming something new." The chamber's crystals pulsed with discussion as the council debated. Lyra felt the frequencies wash over her, understanding them now as clearly as spoken words. Her time on Prisma had changed her in ways neither species had anticipated. Finally, Voss spoke. "The Council accepts your findings, Lyra Henderson. The knowledge of transformation will be shared with all who wish to learn, but this raises new questions about our future relations with Earth." "I've been in contact with the International Space Council," Lyra said. "Pierce's actions actually helped our cause. Earth's governments are eager to establish proper diplomatic relations, especially now that they understand what you're truly capable of." "And what of you?" Voss asked. "You stand between our worlds, neither fully human nor Prismarian. Where do your songs lead?" Lyra felt Nyxus's energy shift beside her, a warm pulse of support and something deeper. "My path is here," she said. "I can serve as a bridge between our peoples, helping others understand what I've learned, that harmony doesn't mean sameness. It means finding ways for different songs to complement each other." The council chamber filled with approving frequencies. Voss rose, their crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. "Then let us prepare for a new movement in our great song. The humans will come, and we will teach them to hear the harmonies as you have." Later, Lyra stood with Nyxus on their favorite crystal spire, watching Prisma's three suns set in a cascade of color. Their hands were clasped, energy flowing freely between their different but complementary forms. "Do you ever regret it?" Nyxus asked. "The changes you've undergone?" Lyra smiled, letting her form shimmer slightly. "How can I regret becoming more than I was? Every change has brought me closer to understanding your people, closer to you." "The Council speaks of establishing an academy," Nyxus said. "A place where humans can learn to hear the songs, to touch the harmonics safely. They wish us to lead it." "Us?" Lyra turned to face them fully. "Are you proposing a formal partnership?" Nyxus's lights danced in that particular pattern that always made Lyra's heart skip. "I am proposing many things, a partnership of minds, of purpose." They paused, lights softening. "Of hearts." "I thought Prismarians didn't have hearts," Lyra teased. "We have cores that resonate with life and love," Nyxus replied. "And mine has been singing your name since the day you first heard our songs." Above them, the stars emerged, their light catching in Prisma's crystal surfaces and creating a symphony of reflections. Somewhere up there, Earth ships were preparing for their first official diplomatic mission. Soon, others would come to learn what Lyra had discovered, that the universe's greatest music came from different songs learning to harmonize. "Yes," Lyra said simply, letting her energy merge with Nyxus's until their lights pulsed in perfect synchronization. "To all of it, the academy, the partnership," she smiled. "The love." Their forms shifted together, crystal and flesh finding that perfect resonance between states. Around them, Prisma's songs swelled in celebration, ancient harmonics blending with new frequencies to create something that had never been heard before in the galaxy. It was a song of transformation, of bridges built between stars, of love that transcended physical form. And as Lyra and Nyxus stood together in the fatting light, they added their own unique duet to the eternal symphony of Prisma. The next morning, as Lyra prepared to greet the first wave of human diplomats, she caught her reflection in a crystal surface. Her eyes now held traces of light and her skin occasionally shimmered with crystalline patterns. But it was her smile that had changed the most. It carried the confidence of someone who had found not just their place in the universe, but their perfect harmony within it. "Ready?" Nyxus asked, offering their hand. Lyra took it, feeling their energies merge into that familiar, beautiful resonance. "Ready, let's teach them how to sing." Together, they stepped forward to begin the next movement in their ever-evolving symphony. A song of two species learning to dance between states of being, of love that bridged the gap between stars, and of a future that glowed as brightly as Prisma's crystal heart.